Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of ChatterBeans Reserved. I'm Isaac, and today I'm sitting down with someone whose journey really struck a chord with me, Nora Wilhelm. You might know her as a Forbes 30 Under 30 honouree, a TEDx speaker, or a systems innovator doing incredible work around social change. But in this conversation, we go beyond the titles. Nora opens up about what it's really like to pour your whole self into making the world better, and the burnout that comes with it. We talk about the hard parts, the recovery, and how she found purpose and creativity in her projects such as The Well and Parayma. Of course, this wouldn't be ChatterBeans without a few laughs and some coffee rituals along the way. So grab a cup, settle in. This is a powerful and real conversation about burnout, balance, and building a better future. This is ChatterBeans with Nora Wilhelm. Nora, welcome to ChatterBeans. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, and I'm really pleased that we can make this happen because we've been in communication for a little while. I think we were trying to get you onto season 2, but here we are for season 3. Now, look, you were introduced to me, and I have to say that your kind of CV and your headlines are very, very impressive. So I am super excited for this conversation. I've got a little bit about you here, that you're a social innovator, entrepreneur, researcher, and you're thriving to make a world where people and the planet can thrive. You were recognised as Forbes 30 Under 30 by the Swiss government, just to name a little bit. And in 2023, you co-founded the World Change Atelier. So I am looking forward to hearing what you want to tell me. So over to you, really. What does life look like for you? What are you up to? Yeah, let's start with that and then see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And it feels so nice to have a space for a conversation that is really just in the spur of the moment, just showing up the way that we are. So that's really cool. Thank you for creating this podcast in this space. I think what's alive for me right now is the crazy polarization and contradictions and tension lines that to me are like a marker of what being alive and having somewhat of a awareness of what's going on as a human being in this day and age. Just what a wild time to be alive, to have access to the internet, to have some degree of awareness of history. So I think something that's been present with me, and I see it with many friends around me and many of my change worker friends, so people who really care about the state of the world and are dedicating their entire lives, right, to more justice, to protecting this planet that sustains us all, is that we feel pulled in so many different directions, right? We see systems collapsing, we see floods, we see wildfires like we've never had them before, droughts in some places and entire cities washed away in others, right? We see incredible violence and starvation and all the things that are going on in the world at present, and it can feel really hard to kind of keep up the spirit, right? To keep going,
Yes.
To be like, it is worth persevering, and I do believe that a better world is possible. And I do believe that I can make a difference, that we can make a difference together, that I still should get up every morning and try my best to pave the way for a future that is more just, more inclusive, more regenerative, more beautiful also, and just more fun for everyone involved. So I think that's what's really present with me, this kind of the challenge that I think we are faced with right now.
And where did the passion start? Like, where, you woke up one day and was it there? Like, when was this, at your stage in life, I suppose?
Already as a kid, I was a bit of a pain in the ass in the in the eyes of my teachers and just fellow people. I suspect them, as I do have an ADHD diagnosis, which a strong sense of justice happens to be one of the symptoms, which I found out only recently. But I presume I'm also potentially on the autism spectrum, because I just had this incredible strong sense for like justice, injustice, and incoherences, right? So like if people around me would say one thing, but then act in another way, which for neurotypical people is like, oh yeah, that's just how the world works, right? We all like are in this collective
Yeah.
delusion a little bit, and we just do our thing. And for me, it was always like, I don't understand. You said this, like, why are we now seeing this unfold? Like, I don't get it.
Mm.
So I think I was already in hindsight, maybe like reflecting on things that I would later have vocabulary to call the patriarchy and to call, right, certain types of discrimination. I was already up in arms as a kid.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, it wasn't always easy. It's not always an easy cross to bear, but it is mine. So,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the other thing that I think was also present since I was a very young kid was just a sense of empathy, like of wanting to connect with other people. Maybe it's also due to the fact that so for those who don't know, Switzerland is a multilingual country. There is no Swiss language, right? We speak German,
Mm.
French, Italian, and Romansh. And I was born in the German part of the country. And when I was 5, 6 years old, we moved to Geneva. And I didn't speak any French, right? So suddenly I was in this French classroom with, all these people from all over the world and all speaking French. And I just think I had a very visceral experience of what it is to like not be understood and not understanding other
Mm.
people, right? I think
Yeah.
this awareness that people have another language, another culture, an entire universe within them that you may not be privy to, for most people may come later in life. But if you grew up in a multicultural context or had to learn a new language as a kid, I think it was just very, forefront for me. So from there, I think empathy, wanting to understand other people, understanding that we are all different, but understanding that there's interesting perspectives that everyone brings. Empathy also for animals, like I think that also was very present from a young age. So there were seeds, here and there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the awakening to the state of the world, like the moment where I realized, like, oh, the world is not just this beautiful, harmonious, abundant, joyful place, was when I was 16 and I was in exchange in Canada, in the English speaking part of Canada. And the now ex-wife of the General Romeo Dallaire, who was the head of the Blue Helmets during the Rwanda genocide, came to give a speech at the local high school where I was at. And I just remember finding out about this genocide and just feeling like, like the floor had been pulled out from underneath my
Yeah.
feet. Like, I was like, how can we as human beings do this to each other? And obviously we hear about also the genocide with the Second World War, right? So I think just confronting the ways in which human beings are able to treat each other and this
Mm.
planet upon which we depend in such terrible ways. That came when I was 15 to 16 years old. And since then, I've been just set on, I'm going to dedicate my life to making a difference. I don't know exactly how, I'll figure that part out, but like, this is what I'm going to do.
And so taking that, because that's quite a young age to have this realization, I suppose. Like, what were the first few steps that you took? Like, you were still at school, I assume, and completing your studies. So what did you do?
I think I was, again, a very big pain in the ass from the perspective of my parents and teachers and peers.
Yes.
Because, it was hard. Like, I came home and I was like, I'm vegetarian. And my parents were like, you what? you, you what now? Okay, whatever, but like, and also, just around me, like, I think I had a drive for certain things, a clarity for certain things. I was a very vocal critic of certain things, right? That like not everyone, or I should say, I have found out since that most people don't want to be confronted with their cognitive dissonance. Most people don't want you to tell them who died to create their iPhone or who, got a rare type of cancer because the clothes that they bought is produced in a very toxic environment, right? Like most people, many people, hopefully this has changed over the years, but in my
Yeah.
experience, many people like would rather not know. And I kind of understand because partially we are told that this is just the way the world is. Like partially we are told there is no other way. Right? We are told it's not our fault, or right, there's nothing we can do about it. We're told so many things that keep us disinformed and disempowered. So this is not a blaming statement, right? But yeah, I was, that person from a young age that was like, hey, but how about that? Like, how do you feel about, the fact that, yeah, this happens for us to have this here. And
Yeah.
some people, came with me in the reflection and were interested and also asked me questions, right? Because obviously I wasn't like born perfect in terms of like being a model citizen who lives
Mm.
in full accordance with our values. In fact, that's pretty impossible in broken systems, right?
Yeah.
So I did find kind of, I think, more and more people who were interested in just having these reflections, asking ourselves these questions, and then seeing where does that take us, like what's the next step from here. And for me, as a young person at the time, I just kind of got very much into volunteering in different places. I worked with the youth Red Cross because the Red Cross originated in Geneva, so there's like a big youth Red Cross institution there that I got involved in. I got involved with Caritas, so with different poverty and inclusion type of local NGOs, also Terre des Hommes, which is an international development NGO. And I think this is also like something that I often say now to people, young people, but also just anyone, is like to just give it a shot. Like just go for it.
Yeah.
Just knock on the door. Just ask. Because I turned up at this Red Cross office and I was like, "Hi, I would like to do an internship. You don't need to pay me." And they're like, "You're 16. We usually take people who have finished their bachelor's." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I can do this and this and this." Right? So like just try and pitch yourself and be like, not in a like fake salesy way, but in a very authentic, honest way of like, I care, here's what I can contribute, and I'll show up with like full energy, and people respond to that. So that's how it kind of went for me. And from
Yeah.
there I got into like, because the Geneva is also where the UN is based partially, so I got into UN youth conferences and then the European Youth Parliament. So I got into this whole movement of young people who kind of care about the state of the world and are
Yeah.
keen to discuss it with others and find potential solutions and just in general try to make a difference.
How did that impact your teenage years, do you think? Like looking back now, I mean, it's obviously the work that you're continuing to do. You're so passionate about it and you've grown by the looks of it. But do you think, your friends at the time, I assume you lost people along the way that didn't quite understand it or just had different values, I suppose. Like how was that for your teenage years, and did it impact what you were to do next at university?
For sure. I do think that I definitely lost people over the years. Sometimes you also reconnect with people, right? Like at the
Yeah.
time they were like, "What are you doing?" And then suddenly they're like, "Oh, like I get it now. I'm interested now."
Yeah.
And in general, at the time, I think even though I was doing all of those things, I was also still, like a teenager and going through high school and trying to get my good grades and like do my stuff, right? Now, did I
Yeah.
have as much fun as my peers? Probably not. Right? So, like, also when I look at my 20s, like, I hear most people's 20s are like about experimenting and having fun and, right, like traveling. And I did travel,
Mm,
but usually for work,
yeah.
or, for a break in between work. But like, I definitely put my 20s into the work that I was doing. And in a way, I don't regret it, because I also through that met other people. So I noticed that, like, for example, when I was a UNESCO Young Leader in 2017, right, suddenly my friend Leo from Colombia, who's like a youth peace activist in Colombia, completely different context, right? My
Yeah.
friend Bushra, who was representing Canada, who's doing incredible work on social justice and inclusion and digital rights. And so you kind of meet like your soul tribe in a way, right? Like people who are on a similar path, who maybe in their own local context feel similarly alone at times or not understood.
Yeah.
But you just realize like, oh, I'm maybe occupying a role, I'm holding a certain type of space or energy in my local context that other people are holding in their own context as well. And from there, I kind of found both an international community and over time, also in my own context, other people who are also working on change. Maybe not the exact same topic as me as the focus, but like they're also in it for the long run. So community kind of, I think, evolved like that over the
Yeah,
years.
of course. That's amazing. And then university. So you studied international affairs. Was that always the dream, or did that come as part of what you were realizing, the work that you were doing? And how was that experience?
So boring. So boring. So disappointing. I think, I experienced that going from middle school to high school was like, wow, these are much more my people, right? So like I
Yeah.
experienced the transition from like, oh, these people are also interested in like better understanding how the world works. So I assumed going to study international affairs, which was like a course to literally understand like how does international policy work, right? How does the economy work and why does it work like that? And all of those
Mm.
things. and law and so on, to be able to change it was my assumption, right? I was like, I'm going to even more so find my people now that I get there.
Yeah.
and, and I went to this it's a little funny because you really see the gap between the German speaking part of Switzerland and the French speaking part. Because if you would have asked anyone in the German speaking part, the university that I ended up going to is like known as a business school, and
Okay.
has like a little bit like a cliche of like, oh yeah, the son of the head of the board of BMW goes there, and right, like people who are more so right in like this private
Yeah.
sector talent pipeline, the consulting pipeline, right? And I didn't know this, like having grown up in Geneva, I just didn't have this like reputation so present with me. I just figured I want to like challenge myself to move, I want to challenge myself to improve my German. And also, I was very upset that I had missed the deadline to apply, for example, to, Cambridge, Oxford, like all these fancy universities. Because Switzerland is very good in allowing everyone a great chance. Like it's
Yeah.
very good in giving everyone a chance. Like public education is really, really good and can kind of uplift anyone, no matter your background. It's your right to go to university, right? So that's amazing. What we're
Mm.
not so good at is picking out like the gifted kids, or like really offering additional opportunities for those who could potentially, right? Like no one came to me. I had like the best, grades and everything, but no one came to me and said, by the way, I think you could get a scholarship, right? To like Cambridge or Oxford or whatever. So when I started thinking about this in my last year, it was already too late.
Oh, what
Yeah.
a shame.
So
Yeah.
anyway, the business school was like my plan B from the get go. So I came there as like, it's fine, I'll find my people. And then anyway, long story short, it wasn't that. But by the time I accepted it, I was already halfway through the degree. I was like, it would be silly to stop now. So I just went to Peru for an exchange semester and to Geneva for another exchange semester and kind of wrapped up my degree.
Yeah.
Some things were useful, but since I've come to like hear a lot of criticism that I believe is very legitimate of these business schools that are in a way just acting as these gospel, choirs for neoliberalism without much self-reflection. Like I think sustainability was like a footnote in
Really.
in the whole economics course that we had, or the business course that we had. So I would just say I think I credit much more of who I am and what I got to do and the skills I have to everything I did outside of uni.
Yeah. And so you must have had a busy time. So you're in uni full time doing your work, but then all the other bits that you're doing outside.
Yeah.
Um, did you ever get a chance just to relax, or did you not see that, I guess, and still now, do you see that as kind of you you don't give yourself space for that? I don't know. Like,
Yeah, for sure. I think, I'm, at least when I look back, I do think that I was a pretty, joyful person, and I found ways to like integrate pockets of fun and, friendships and cool things that I was also doing like in between all of the work. But it was certainly not like my main priority. Let's put it that way. And I think there's something, that I really appreciate about that I think is really beautiful, and like a deep dedication and commitment that I have. And there is
absolutely.
something a little compulsive about it. Like there is also a dimension of it that did land me in a burnout clinic, right? And I'm sure we'll get to talk more about
Yeah.
that.
Mm,
But like, so even though stuff really hit the fan a few years later post university, if I look back, I already see those tendencies of overworking, of trying to be everything for everyone, of right, like striving for this sense of very high standards for myself, that I was holding at the time, of feeling like no matter what I do, it's never enough. Like that was definitely an experience that I've had for a long, long time.
well, it's a question that I was going to come on to, is how do you have that balance in life when you're so well known? Like I was, reading your bio, it goes on and on. You've done TEDx's, you've done conferences here and there and everywhere. It's very incredible, and you're so out there in the public. Like, how do you find that balance? Do you ever just get to relax, like switch off for a moment?
Yeah, I found that if I don't want to burn out again, I have to do a number of things that are like safeguards almost. It's like when if you play bowling and you're not so good, you have to put up the rails on both sides. Like that's a little bit how I need to work. Like if I
I
just
love
go
that.
like woo, I go wild.
It's all
Like
over.
exactly, it's all over. Like it's so much drive and power and energy, and it will
Mm,
like end me up down the gutter in the
yeah,
burnout clinic again. So I'm like, okay, safeguards. So
yeah,
my safeguards include things like taking regular breaks. And specifically, I really like to do a retreat. So, like
yeah.
going to a place and it's like maybe it's a yoga retreat. I've done 10-day silent meditations retreats, which almost drove me insane. I've done, like things that are more nature oriented or like well-being oriented, but all sorts of things. Just something that is like a digital detox, takes you completely out of your context. You have no distractions, like you
Mm,
don't watch Netflix or something like that. You're just in nature, in your body, maybe moving, having great food, that kind of stuff. And I think I need this kind of very clear breaks a couple times a year. And I also learned that I need to like live a little bit more in seasons. So if I try to like do the podcasts and do the speeches and write the books and run the programs and mentor the people and write all the things at 100 or 110 all year, like that's not going to work. So
yeah.
what I figured for myself is that like usually I'll have a pretty intense period, like September to mid-December. Then I'll take like a month and a half break and then slower working remotely, maybe. Yeah.
Mm,
Then like February to May also be quite like high paced. And then I have again a period of like travel, more work behind the scenes in summer and back at it. So this kind of
nice.
outward facing, full on energy, I only need to like really go into that vibe
Yeah.
twice a year, like in those kind of seasons.
I
Yeah.
really like I really like that, and I think that's why we're now filming this. Actually, 1st of September. This will go out probably in October, early October. But we're filming this in September because you've had your summer break, which I really appreciated. Actually, I'm really keen to talk about the burnout then, because you're obviously, like we've said, you've done a lot. You're doing a lot. Clearly, your schedule is very busy. I really want to talk about the 10-day meditation shortly. But that moment of burnout, how did it come about? Like, and what was the impact on you and your body?
So around 2020, I had been leading a new NGO. So basically, I left university and I pretty much immediately founded an NGO. That was a very big project in the Swiss context to advance systems change. It was called Collaboratio helvetica. And it was a very collaborative thing, very big vision, very visible in the Swiss context, right? So it was like full on. And it had many challenging factors about it, like from the funding structure to the team, like just a lot of things were like, very intense. And by 2020, so of course, COVID hit. I'd been doing it for 3 years. And with COVID came like I think, as most of us experienced, like this additional workload. Like, first, for a month or two, we were all like, what are we doing? So much free time. Let me bake some sourdough. and then, and then suddenly it got wild, right? And I think,
Mm,
like many people, I ended up doing maybe even more than I was doing before to try to like help cope with what we were experiencing. And I had, I think, a breakdown sometime in November of 2020, where I even tried to find like a psychiatrist or like just help in general, because I was like, I remember one time like just sitting in my bathtub sobbing and just having this like meta realization of like, I don't think this is normal. Like somehow, because like when you're in it, like depression really feels like I don't see how this could ever get better. This is reality. This is how it is. There is no way it's going to get better. I am just like this. Maybe even I deserve it. Like we all may have a slightly different narrative, but it's really like you have these gray glasses on, like everything just looks so bleak. But suddenly I had this like moment of like, wait, like this is not right. And so I looked for a psychiatrist, and actually, because of COVID, so many, like everyone was just overwhelmed. They didn't have any capacity. So I ended up not finding help at all. And then somehow coped, trudged along, managed, I don't know how. And then a year later, I again had like a bit less acute, but still a kind of a low point where I was like, okay. And then reflecting back, I realized that every June, I had like a kind of a breakdown, and then I took a break. And then every December, I had kind of a breakdown and I took a break. And it's been like 3 or 4 years at this point of this pattern repeating. And I was like, okay, I have to be honest with myself that like something is not working here. Like this has repeated now too many times to delude myself into thinking that things are fine.
Yeah.
So then I went to, I finally found a psychiatrist, and he took like, I want to say one look at me, not quite, but pretty much. And he was like, yeah, that's burnout. Yep. And also chronic depression. And chronic depression is when the psychiatrist considers that you have been in a depressive state at different levels of intensity for 2 years or more. So from his perspective, I had actually been chronically depressed for, yeah, like at least 2 to 3 years. And because I am what they call a high performer, right? Like maybe gifted if you
Yeah.
use the children's language, but just like somehow I was able to compensate so much that it didn't show, right? I
I
was
see.
working, I was delivering, I was doing. I was on speeches. I even held my TEDx in that time, you know? And then behind the scenes, like what is the emotional reality actually
Mm.
behind it? And it was one of exhaustion, one of being just, yeah, tired all the time, feeling like no matter what I do, it's never good enough, it's never enough, and really feeling like nothing can ever change. And I think having forgotten what joy or ease even really feels like, and the idea
Yeah.
that I could deserve this, that this would be like a, you know, something I could experience and actually am worthy of experiencing, was like so far away. So that
Mm.
was the point where I really had a reckoning and had to like face the place to which I had let things go to.
And when that psychiatrist said to you, it's burnout, definitely, chronic depression, like, how did you feel? And what were the next steps? Like, did you take a break? Did you, what happened?
I think that I had probably two main reactions. I think one was a feeling of
Mm.
like, oh, I failed, like a sense of, oh, like, you know, yeah, like I somehow I didn't do it. I didn't do it well enough. Like other people may have been able to cope with this and I didn't. Like somehow, right, this just negative self-critical lens, which is part of what drove me to this point, was definitely alive. The other one, I think, was more of feeling a kind of relief, because suddenly you have a term, right? You have a like an understanding, you have a vocabulary to describe what you've been going through, and someone who validates this is not how it's supposed to be. This is not normal and you can get better, right? So like it opens a door to the possibility of things changing, which I think I very much needed at the time. And then in terms of what I did, of course, I think the sane thing to do would have been to take a break immediately. I obviously did not do that because I am insane. And I instead project managed my burnout.
Yes.
It's really crazy when I think about it, but it's such a mirror, right, to like my state
Mm.
of mind. And I was so invested in this organization and in this work, you know, continuing and working out, that I said, okay, I'm going to stay for another 6 months. So I found out in December, January ish, like at the end of 21, early 22. And I was like, I'm going to stay for another 6 months. I'm going to train, you know, hire and train someone to replace me. I'm going to do all of these things. I'm going to generate more funding. So you're all set, right? So like, I'm just going to
Yeah.
pour and pour and pour so that then I can
So
be
then
burnt
you can
out.
relax. Yeah. Yeah.
So that it's okay that I can be burnt out
That sounds
and
sensible.
be gone for a while and you'll all be okay, right? Like, oh
Yeah.
gosh. I'll say more about like the psychology behind that later, but just for the storyline. So I did that. I worked until end of June. And then, believe it or not, so I was doing a degree in Cambridge at the same time, like one of these degrees that you do partially online and then you go to Cambridge for a week and then, right. And I had my dissertation to write, master's thesis for those not in the UK context. And so I ended my work at my organization, and then I spent a month and a half writing my dissertation. Completely burnt out, hit submit, and then I believe the next day or 2 days later I checked in at the burnout clinic. And I held, I think, one of the fanciest, like most important speeches you can possibly hold in the Swiss context. Also, right
Really?
before that, like, yeah, it was crazy. And then I arrived in the burnout clinic, and again, very funny to like notice like everyone around me has been like on sick leave for maybe a year, and was expecting after the clinic stay to still be on sick leave for like a year. Whereas I came in like, okay, we have 2 months to get fixed.
Just finished
Let's
work, taking a
do
break.
this.
Yeah.
Like,
And so
really.
that clinic, like how long were you there, and what did each day look like?
So this is honestly, like, I think an amazing concept. And I heard since that, like, in many countries, this does not exist. So I'm very, very grateful that I got a chance to do that. So this clinic that I went to is like in the mountain region in Switzerland. So very beautiful, surrounded by nature. And you go there, I think initially it's 6 weeks, and then usually it's extended to 8, some people to 10, I don't know, but something around that. Like at least 6 weeks is what you spend there. And yeah, I thought, oh my gosh, doing nothing but therapy for 6 weeks, like I'm going to be on fire when I leave, like I'm going to be like a Duracell rabbit, like this is going to fix everything. Oh gosh. And so for me, it was very much a process of like slowly, like getting out of denial. And this is a big thing that they taught me that I repeat everywhere I go since, is like, there's a model called the burnout spiral. And step one is overwhelm, right? So for some reason you get overwhelmed, and it can be a chronic thing, like I just always have too much work. It could be like there's a sick person in the family. It could be there's a flood that takes my house, right? Something that is like overwhelming. But then the second step that starts to take you down the burnout spiral is denial.
Yeah.
So it's the moment where you're like, oh yeah, right now it's a lot, but like I'll be fine. I don't need help. I can do this. My
Yeah.
denial sounded like, when people ask me, how are you doing right now? I would always say something like, right now it's a lot, but in 2 months it's going to be much better. And I would just repeat this for years.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was big on the denial. And then from there you start to like do less with your friends, and you start to move less, and you abandon your
Mm,
hobbies, and you abandon your health, and right, so slowly it gets worse and worse and worse.
yeah.
So for me, the burnout clinic stay was a lot about like accepting that I was in that pit. And
Yeah.
something that shook me is when they said, usually it takes you as long as it took you to get to that point to get out again,
Yeah.
which in my
Interesting.
case was years, right?
Years. Yeah.
And for other
Yeah.
people, it can be a month or two, and it just hits them, right? Like a
Mm,
train, and they're there, and then they get up again. But for me, it was like a whole lifestyle, right? That I had
yeah.
cultivated that got me there. And so the clinic stay was a lot about like, you have some talk therapy, you have art therapy, you have movement therapy, you have optional dance or music therapy, which was awesome. I even had boxing therapy, which was great to like explore boundary setting and like, owning your anger and things like that. A lot of physical stuff as well. Like we had like a sports program, a whole movement program, very gentle, like not like you have to be an athlete all of a sudden, but just to, get the body like moving again. And you had walks, you had good food, ideally good sleep. Not so much in my case, but that was part of the concept. So yeah, just an environment where you don't need to worry about things. Like you don't need to think about your, what are you cooking? What are you, I don't know, your laundry, like, just like the stress of life is kind of removed. Your work is removed. Any stressors are kind of in the back end, and you really have a space to, in a way, do the uncomfortable work of, for me at least, stop like this running away from myself, right?
Yeah. And
The,
and how long were you in there
I think
in
I
total?
stayed in the end 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so that moment where you knew you were about to leave, like how was that? I imagine that that's quite an overwhelming feeling, going, I've had this kind of, what seems to a lot of people, it seems to me, quite luxury in a way. Like when do we ever get to just stop and have
Yeah.
things cooked and things like that? Like how did you feel like that moment coming out?
Yeah, it was for sure daunting. They do
Mm,
prepare you. So, like, you do have even like a little workshop where you plan like your daily schedule and like your action plan, right? So, for example, I had found a art therapist that was close by that I could continue to go to. I got different help, and you don't go immediately back to work. Like most people actually stay on sick leave for quite a while. I wanted to
mm,
start to go back as soon as possible, of course.
of course.
So, what else? I like, I think within maybe 2 or 3 weeks of being home, I went back 20%, like 1 day a week, more or less, and then 30 and then 40. But yeah, it was a process for sure to leave that space, because by the end also you forged relationships, right, with the other people that are there.
Mm.
You relate, right, to this experience, and then suddenly you are thrown back. So there was definitely a fear, and I was wondering, like, is it possible to go back to my organization and change the structures and the rhythms and my role, and also what people expect of me and how I've accepted to be treated as well, right? So that my responsibility in that, in such a way that I don't land right in the same place again. And I tried, and I came to the conclusion, like by the end of, I think it was maybe like half a year after, that I realized it's not going to work. Like I see the same patterns happening again. um, I see myself falling back into certain patterns. I see the dynamics, and I was like, I am aware that both for my own health and also for this, like this organization to hopefully prosper, right? I was like, it's not healthy for any organization to be so dependent on one single person, right? you
Exactly. Yeah.
you do want an organization to be sustainable, to be carried by many, and clearly for some reason, as long as I'm in the room, in like energetically holding the space, somehow this doesn't happen. So for me, it was a matter of giving it a chance to succeed, to step out actually. So also out of love in a way for the work, right? Because I saw if it just ends in me burning out again and it's still dependent on me, like it's not going to serve anyone.
Definitely. Definitely. So then, so you left that organization. When did you then find things like the meditation retreats? Was that after that period?
I had already started before. So
Okay.
I think the first one I did was in 2017, and then again in 2020. So it was something I did, here and there regularly. But unfortunately, it was more like a symptom fighting thing, right? It was like the one thing I did, or like too rare to really be sustainable and make a long-term change. So now I'm trying to do these things more often, more regularly, and also in my daily life have like more habits that are conducive to me not burning out completely.
Yeah.
And have different, like coaches or people who kind of also help me stay accountable. So that's some of the changes that I've implemented, and of course the right. So this I created shortly after my stay in the clinic. So sometime after that, because I realized that all the things that I had gravitated towards as a kid, like I was always dancing, singing, wanting to learn a new instrument, writing some book or movie script. Like I was very like always having a creative project going on. And then I kind of, as I focused so much on change work, right, on like, we need to change this and we need to tackle these problems, I kind of relegated all the creative artistic stuff to like a hobby, like something, maybe if I have time, like a nice to have. Or maybe I even had a judgment towards myself that if I dedicated myself to art, that would be like an egoistic thing to do, right? Because there is so much suffering in the world. So I had this kind of trap set up for myself on a psychological level. And I realized that actually all these artistic and creative things, not only is it, good for the soul, and it's a lovely thing to do, and you get to pause and you get to reconnect with yourself and just tune into something, be in a flow state, right? There's all these benefits on so many different levels. And actually studies have showed that of all the interventions, dancing alone has the highest positive impact on depression, more so than antidepressants, which is
Interesting.
super interesting, right? And crazy. So I was like, okay, so clearly there's a lot of value to all these art-based creative tools, but also it's very related to change work, because
Yeah.
what doing a creative process does, so say you're painting something not for the sake of the output, but just for the sake of painting, or dancing, not to learn a choreography, but just to move your body and have fun, like that in a way reminds you that you are a creator. Like you have the power to create something when before there was nothing, right? Like you can take a piece of clay and do something with it, and you've created that, or a painting, or whatever it is, a poem, a journal entry. And that energy of like remembering your own creative power is also how you remember your agency. And your
Mm.
agency and your power to change things is both what depression tells you you don't have, right? Like things are going to
Yeah.
stay the same. But
Yeah.
it's also what capitalism and the ruling class and so on tell us as well. So both as an artist and as a change worker, you need this inner conviction of like, I don't care what you say. I'm a creator and I'm going to create things, right?
And so this is where you then found the atelier, right? In
Yeah,
2023.
exactly. So I was like, this is incredible. This is so powerful. I rediscovered all of those things, right? Also in the clinic, we had a lot of like music therapy, art therapy, all sorts of things. And I was like, these are such powerful tools. And I don't think enough people are aware of them or have access to them. Because I mean, how many people, first of all, know about art therapy, for example? And then how many people have an art therapist in their neighborhood? And how many can afford to go? So I was like, okay, let me instead work with art therapists, with facilitators, with dancers, with different people, and create online workshops that are super cheap, or we even have scholarships so people can join for free if they cannot afford to, that will give them this experience, right? And it's one-off workshops, but it's also a series of workshops to go deeper into something. Like
Yeah.
we have one where you create with different elements, like with watercolors for water, with flame and fire to connect to fire.
Wow, nice.
So very different things. But yeah, just making
Yeah,
it more accessible to more people was the core intention.
I love that. And so is that what you're focused on now? Or have you got more? I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, there's more. That is the side quest.
Right,
But
okay.
the well is the side quest, or one of my side quests. According to my friends, it's my expensive hobby.
That's
Which
fine. We
I'm
all
like,
have one.
fair enough, fair enough. So yeah, I love it. It's like a really a project of the heart, but it's not, something that I have an ambition to, like, that it would pay my bills or, work to be my main focus. So I've continued to do the work that I was doing before, which was around supporting people to do work that is more impactful. So I'm speaking a lot to change workers, so people who already know that they're committed to making a difference. But very often, and I had this realization too, like, we are so dedicated to a cause, and then at some point we realize, wait a minute, like, even if we completely succeed with what we said, it's not going to be enough to, like, solve the issue. Like, the challenge is much more entrenched. The challenge is much more upstream. Even if we, I don't know, distribute 5,000 meals a day, there are still going to be people who go hungry in this city. So how do we solve hunger? Like, why are people hungry, right? So just a step before the symptom. So that's what I was focused on with this organization in Switzerland for a couple of years. And when I left that, I mean, of course, I had to go through a whole reckoning of, like, who am I now that I am not this person? Like, I'm not anymore this person who's fully dedicated to this and to building this organization. I could have gone, to work for the government, an international development cooperation. Like, I could have gone in a number of different directions, but I had the opportunity to receive funding to kind of put what I had learned over the last 15 years of change work and 8 years of system change work out into the world at a level that is much more scalable, where I can support many more people. So what this means concretely is, whereas before I was doing a lot of in-person trainings and maybe training for a whole year, 25 people or 20 people, or I was doing a speech here and there or workshops here and there, now what I get to do is I wrote a book, a first one, and I did a first online program, which totally sold out, and I'm going to do a second one. So I'm just building support infrastructure that is accessible again to more people, right? That is more
Yeah.
scalable. It's called Parayma. And in that, the focus is so global. It's not just Switzerland anymore. But the focus is first to help people figure out their purpose, what I call their unique contribution, because I'm very much convinced that we all hold, like, a unique piece of the puzzle, right, in this global team that we're in. And it's about finding our role, our position in the playing field, if you will. Not that I am a very big sports fan, but that's as far as the metaphor goes. And once we found that, then the second question is, okay, like, how do we deepen it, right? So then it's about learning systems change, systems thinking, how to work towards paradigm shifts, all of that. We can go more into it if it's interesting. And then the third group are people who are already doing systems change work, and they're facing all the challenges that I've experienced firsthand, right? So it's difficulties finding funding, it's the pushback you experience from powerful stakeholders who, of course, are very invested in things not changing because they benefit from the way that it is,
Yeah.
burnout risk, and so on. So that's kind
Wow.
of the support that I'm offering now.
Yeah. And the book that you're writing, when is that due out? Is it focused on all of that, pulling all of that knowledge together?
So I'm writing a book for each of the three stages in a way. And I've finished the first one. I'm in the editing process since almost a year now. So, of course, it was supposed to be published last year. In my usual, I didn't lose, some things never change. I didn't lose like my ambitious planning
Exactly.
and my very ambitious timelines. So hopefully, I'm in the last few chapters of the editing process now, but it was just much
Amazing.
more time intensive than I thought. Writing, not so much. Like writing, I think I wrote it in 3 months or so. It just, once I was able to break through the blockade of the white page, it really flew. But editing is grueling, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that book, hopefully sometime later this year, pre-orders,
Amazing.
we'll see. And then the second book is also like in the process of being written. I'm hoping that one will come next year.
Amazing.
One step at a time.
Exactly. And you need to take time for yourself in amongst all of this as well. One thing I did just want to touch on is being a fellow of the Dalai Lama. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Where did that fit into the equation? And tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the Dalai Lama Fellowship is an incredible fellowship and opportunity. So, for those who've never heard this concept of a fellowship, it's usually an organization that offers to a specific group, so say young leaders who are engaged in social or environmental justice topics, a container and some type of support. So, some fellowships will give you funding, some fellowships will give you visibility, others will give you training or tutoring or coaching in a specific area. Many will give you community, just the fact that you're with peers, right, who are also facing the same struggles. So that's a fellowship in general. And Parayma is also offering one just now for systems change leaders. But the Dalai Lama Fellowship specifically is focused on this clarity that we need to do the inner work if we want to be able to do the outer work. So put in simple terms, for my case, right, from the story we've been discussing, like if I continue to exploit myself and if I burn myself out or work myself to the bone in this process, like I am not serving anybody, right?
Exactly.
And even worse, I am actually carrying into the world a paradigm that I'm actually hoping to change, right? So like I'm over here fighting to end exploitation and extractive capitalism, and I'm fighting for justice. And I try to do that through exploiting myself. Like it doesn't make sense, right? So I need to find ways to take responsibility for my own patterns. And of course, there's a systemic context, but also what is driving me to act in this way. And can I find different ways of navigating challenges in this work? That's just my personal example, right? Other people have maybe anger issues, or other people have jealousy, or, guilt, or but there's so many different patterns and issues that we can have inside of us that affect the kind of leader and person that we can be in the world. And so the Dalai Lama Fellowship in kind of, it's not, Buddhist per se, but it is definitely oriented towards contemplation. So the idea that through meditation and other tools, like, for example, meditative painting is also a type of mindfulness practice, right? As is dancing, if you do it in a conscious way. Through this act of pausing, of taking a conscious pause, of checking in with yourself, of maybe tuning back into your breath, grounding yourself, right? There's so many different terms we can use to describe the same thing. You can actually choose your reaction.
Yeah.
Right? So rather than being reactive in the moment, you can have a conscious decision. How am I going to respond to this? So maybe that's the difference between reacting and responding. And the assumption or the thesis is that will make us better leaders. That will make us better human beings in general. And the Dalai Lama Fellowship picks about 15 people every year from all over the globe who've done great work in their communities that aligned with these visions of justice and regeneration, and helps them really create a space for this kind of practice. And you receive kind of online modules, and you have two coaches, actually, one for your project and one for your contemplation. And just the incredible community of other people all over the world who are also engaged in this work. So for me, it was one of the loveliest fellowships I've been a part of. It was 2022 to 2023 that I was an active fellow, and then you become a lifelong fellow, and you just stay connected with the community.
Yeah, it brings me back to the time I live in London, and we have the London Buddhist Centre, and I did this course there for about 8 weeks, and I think it was the calmest that I've ever been in terms of what you say, the reactionary stuff, how we respond, because living somewhere like London tests it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So it was just nice to kind of take me back slightly to that time where I was doing lots of meditation and mindful moments throughout the day. And I remember holding the tube, counting in my brain, like, just stay calm. Yeah, it's hard, but yeah, I hear. So look, in amongst all of this work that you're doing, writing a book, you're doing a lot. Do you get time to have a coffee? Do you get time to just sit and enjoy a coffee? And if so, what's your go-to coffee order?
Yeah. So I actually have a semi-unexplained chronic tiredness that still lingers, even though I've healed from the burnout. I'm not in this context anymore, but I still have this like just chronic tiredness. And I've done all sorts of like medical, tests over the last few months to figure out what it might be. And it's like getting closer to an answer, but it's not fully there yet. We've eliminated like all the obvious, very terrible things. So, it should be okay. But
Good.
yeah, so it's still in process. So
yeah,
I literally could not function if I did not have like this coffee in the morning. And I tried sometimes. I was like, I'm going to have a matcha, latte in the morning now, or like I'm going to go off caffeine completely. And for a while it works. But then this chronic tiredness comes back, especially if I've been sick or something. So it's just like
you need it.
Yeah, it's a crutch to function at this point.
Have you got a favorite coffee?
So I just love a good cappuccino with any type of like vegan milk. So it will be like oat milk usually for me, if I can choose.
Yeah. Oat milk is very popular. It's the most popular on this podcast that anyone's ever answered. It is.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm so happy to hear that.
I personally don't understand it. I can't. I understand for the environmental and sustainability. I just can't get on board with it. So anyway, I tend to have a black coffee, so it's fine. But
black, that's all right. That's okay.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. No, honestly, oat milk has come through loud and clear from the first couple of seasons of this. If there was someone you could have coffee with, anyone dead or alive, who would it be and why? Is there anyone that comes to mind?
Yeah, it's so many. I think who comes to mind right now, I'm going to say two people. Margaret Wheatley, who's an incredible person who's been doing a lot of work around who do we choose to be in this time of collapse. So I think
interesting,
incredible mind, incredible work.
Yeah,
love to sit down for a chat.
You two would just spark, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll be like, yes. And the other person is Bayo Akomolafe, Yoruba philosopher, and just incredible mind, incredible words, incredible work on belonging, on emergence, on how do we meet this moment. And definitely a person that sometimes when I read some of his text, I feel challenged, right? Like I feel even called out in some of the patterns that I still maybe didn't notice are just part of the same energy that I'm trying to change. So definitely incredible person.
Is that a nice feeling, being challenged?
It's a uncomfortable feeling, but it's, I think, one of my also favorite things, because it means I'm meeting a growth edge. And I think it's kind of part of what I live for. Like I love to know, like, okay, here I'm meeting a growth edge. And even if I can't completely absorb the teaching in the moment, I will keep a note of it. Like revisit this when you feel you have the capacity.
That's incredible. Thank you. So out of everything that you've done and life that you've led so far and the work that you do, is there one piece of advice or a life lesson that you would love to just get out there to everyone as your message?
Who was it that said that the easiest way to take away someone's power is to convince them that they don't have any? Mrs. Walker, maybe? We can look it up and put it in the show notes. But I think my key thing would be like, don't ever let anyone tell you that you do not have power. Because you do, right? All of us do so much in our daily choices, in the small things, in where do we source our coffee, what kind of milk do we put into the coffee, exactly. But also in how we treat each other, right? In who we vote for, in how we speak to our neighbors, in what we choose to participate in or not, in the protests that we join, in the work that we do. Like there is so much power that we hold. And the people who would rather things don't change are very afraid of all of us figuring out just how much power we wield. So that will be my key message. Remember, you have so much power.
Last final question before we get onto the kind of quick fire round. When do you feel most like yourself?
Interesting. I feel like I have maybe a bunch of different selves, if that makes
Okay.
sense. So I
Yeah.
think I do feel like myself when I'm, giving a speech or a workshop and I'm really holding space for this potential to emerge. And I feel like really in the zone and I can feel how, just things are kindled, like sparks, are flying and people have hope in their eyes again. Like I kind of live for that. And then I also feel very much like myself when no one knows who I am, when I'm like alone in a spa or in a hammam or just swimming in the lake or, doing a dance session, like something that has absolutely nothing to do with my work or what I contribute and just is about being in some type of movement. I know this is the commonality. So either movement in dancing or with a body of water.
I love that, and I don't think I can fully imagine because you are so out there in the work that you do. But yeah, that one moment where no one knows who you are, there's no pressure on you to give an answer to something or give a speech. Like it must be such an amazing feeling.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for such an incredible conversation. Before we end, I just want to get to know you a little bit more. And so we've got the quick fire round. Are you
Let's
ready?
do it.
Let's do it. First thing you do in the morning.
Prepare coffee.
I love it.
By necessity.
Yes. In order to function. If you were to pack a bag right now, where are you going?
My favorite yoga wellness retreat center.
One thing that always lifts your mood.
Playing a game or playing with children or dogs.
Amazing. One habit that you swear by.
Following the cycles of the moon and kind of taking a time to set intentions when the moon is new and reflecting on those intentions when the moon is full.
Oh, I love that. Favorite way to spend your day off? Do you get a day off?
Occasionally. I love being out in nature for walks, for seeking out really beautiful mountain lakes or bodies of water in general, if not the hammam, and reading really cool fantasy books.
Your favorite place you visited and why?
Ever. I think my favorite place I've ever been to is called Quilmes. It's in Argentina. And it is a place that, if you think a little bit of Machu Picchu or like one of these ruins of ancient civilizations, a little bit like that. So it's like an incredible city built into the mountainside. And they were one of the last to really resist the Spanish conquerors. And then they were all deported from there and brought to near Buenos Aires, but they recently reclaimed their land. And so you have the people who hail from there, even though they've been displaced for a few generations, telling you about this history and this incredibly like well conserved place. Just super powerful.
I'm sure. Yeah. One risk that you're glad you took.
Creating Parayma and not going to work for the government or taking the fancy job anywhere. Just going and following that call.
If you could time travel, would you go forwards or backwards or stay right here?
Hypothetically, can we change things in the past or no?
Yeah, you can.
Interesting.
For you, this is an interesting question.
This is it's very philosophical. I'll have to meditate on this and come back to you.
Fine. I'll leave that. Finally, what's a small amount of joy that you've experienced recently?
I experience a lot of joy when I have a foster puppy, Chucho, at home at the moment, and just seeing him, how he can play for hours with his ball and just throw the ball, look at it very angrily, grab the ball again, or with his favorite stone for that matter. It's just
love it.
Invested and present and joyful.
Yeah. Amazing. Nora, thank you so much for an amazing conversation. Literally, I could probably spend hours talking to you and asking more and more questions because you're a joy to talk to, and you've clearly done so much in life, and you've clearly got so much ambition to make a change. Where can people connect with you, find out all the things that you do, get your book when it comes out? Where can they connect with you?
Yes. So it depends on what resonates the most. So, for example, if you really resonated with the part around burnout and resilience and well-being, maybe the art-based practices, then The Well is the perfect place to go to. We're on, all the major social media platforms. We have a website as well with decent SEO, so you should find us on Ecosia or Google. If you resonate with the area around change work and finding your unique contribution, and maybe if you feel called, like, I think there's more that I'm meant to bring to the world in this lifetime, or if you are a change worker already doing this type of work, but you want to go beyond and you want to see your impact grow, then Parayma is the best place to go to. So that is spelled Parayma. Parayma.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Lovely.
So that would be the perfect place. And otherwise, my personal channels on LinkedIn or my website or Instagram, my DMs are always open.
Amazing. And we'll tag you in all of those things so that people can find them in the description. Nora, thank you so much for joining me on ChatterBeans today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a joy.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, why not hit that 5-star wherever you get your podcasts and hit the subscribe button so you're the first to know when the brand new episodes are released. We've also got more content over on YouTube, TikTok and Instagram at chatter.beans. Until next time, keep chatting, keep sipping, and I'll see you soon. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of ChatterBeans Reserved. I'm Isaac, and today I'm sitting down with someone whose journey really struck a chord with me, Nora Wilhelm. You might know her as a Forbes 30 Under 30 honouree, a TEDx speaker, or a systems innovator doing incredible work around social change. But in this conversation, we go beyond the titles. Nora opens up about what it's really like to pour your whole self into making the world better, and the burnout that comes with it. We talk about the hard parts, the recovery, and how she found purpose and creativity in her projects such as The Well and Parayma. Of course, this wouldn't be ChatterBeans without a few laughs and some coffee rituals along the way. So grab a cup, settle in. This is a powerful and real conversation about burnout, balance, and building a better future. This is ChatterBeans with Nora Wilhelm.